I returned from my 2-week business trip in Milan to find my closet door wide open and completely empty. The vintage Chanel blazers, the rare Dior pieces, my grandmother's Hermes scarves. All gone, 7 years of carefully curated fashion. History had vanished. My heart literally stopped. As I stood there frozen, my sister Kate walked in, car keys dangling from her fingers, smiling like she'd just won the lottery. "Oh, you're back early," she said, twirling her keys. "By the way, check out my new ride. It's a BMW 4 Series. Pretty sweet, right?" My mind couldn't connect the dots at first. Then it hit me like a freight train. "Kate, where is my collection?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She shrugged, that same dismissive shrug she'd been giving me since we were kids. "I sold it. Got a really good price, too. Enough for the down payment on my car. You didn't really need all those old clothes anyway, and I actually needed a car." The room started spinning. My collection was worth over $50,000, pieces I'd hunted down at estate sales, authenticated at my own expense, preserved with archival materials. Some had tripled in value since I'd acquired them. "You sold my things?" "Without asking me?" I could barely form the words. "It's not like you were wearing them." She rolled her eyes. "They were just sitting in plastic, collecting dust." I grabbed my phone and called our parents, hands shaking so hard I could barely dial. They suggested we discuss it over dinner that night. When I arrived at their house, still in shock, Kate was already there, showing off pictures of her new car. My mother hugged me with that placating smile I knew too well. "It's just clothes, honey," my father said before I could even speak, patting my hand across the dinner table. "Let's not make a mountain out of a molehill." "Just clothes?" I repeated. "Dad, some of those pieces were worth thousands. That collection was my investment." My mother sighed. "Kate needed a car to get to job interviews. You're doing so well with your design business. Surely you can rebuild your collection." The way she said it, like it was a child's hobby, not a carefully calculated investment. Kate smirked between bites of lasagna. "Exactly. It's not like you don't have the money to replace them." I sat there, food untouched, listening to them rationalize the theft of years of my life. Something inside me shifted. I excused myself to use the bathroom, but instead slipped into Kate's old bedroom where she was staying temporarily. There on her desk were the receipts from the sales, a folder full of shipping labels, and her car paperwork. I quietly took photos of everything, including the BMW's VIN number, then rejoined dinner without a word. I didn't argue, I didn't cry, I smiled, declined dessert claiming exhaustion from my trip, and left. But I wasn't going home to wallow. I was going to make a call to my friend Nicholas, who happened to be an excellent lawyer. Updated. Thank you all for the supportive comments on my original post. The situation has escalated even more since I wrote this. Kate actually had the nerve to ask if she could store some of her stuff in my extra closet space, now that it's empty. The audacity is breathtaking. Has anyone else experienced family members who think your possessions are community property? My collection wasn't just random designer items. Each piece told a story. The 1970s Halston gown I found at an estate sale in Connecticut. The limited edition Alexander McQueen scarf from his last collection. The vintage Chanel suit jacket identical to the one my grandmother wore in her only professional portrait. I'd spent every bonus check, tax return, and birthday money since I was 21 building that collection. Kate and I had shared an apartment for 3 years, ever since she graduated college and couldn't afford rent on her own. Our parents had suggested the arrangement. Your sister needs help getting on her feet. Translation. Kate needed someone to subsidize her lifestyle while she found herself. I was paying 70% of our rent despite us having identical-sized bedrooms, covering utilities when she forgot, and stocking groceries that mysteriously disappeared before I could eat any. This wasn't the first time Kate had helped herself to my things. 6 months ago, she borrowed my laptop for a weekend and returned it with a cracked screen. It was already damaged, she insisted, despite the fact I'd just had it serviced. Last year, she wore my cashmere sweater to a party and returned it with wine stains. "It's not that noticeable," she said with a shrug. Each time, our parents made excuses. "She's still figuring things out," or "You've always been the responsible one." The truth was, I had worked hard to build my life. After graduating with a design degree, I'd taken a corporate job I hated to build savings, freelanced on weekends to build a portfolio, and lived on ramen and coffee until I could launch my own small design business. Meanwhile, Kate had bounced between 3 different majors before settling on communications, then bounced between entry-level jobs she quit whenever they became too stressful. Yet somehow, I was always positioned as the lucky one who had it easy. What hurt most about the collection being gone wasn't just the monetary value, though that was substantial. It was what it represented. My grandmother had been a seamstress for a high-end department store in the 1960s. She taught me to appreciate the artistry in well-made clothes, the history encoded in stitches and fabric choices. Fast fashion is forgettable, she'd tell me. But well-made pieces tell stories that last generations. After she died, I'd channeled my grief into hunting down pieces from the eras she'd loved most. Each addition to my collection felt like keeping her memory alive. Kate knew this. She'd rolled her eyes through enough of my enthusiastic explanations about finding a rare piece or the history behind a particular designer. No one cares about old clothes, she'd say, while spending hundreds on fast fashion outfits that fell apart after 3 washes. But she definitely knew the monetary value. Just last month, she'd been in the room when I'd shown our mother a Vogue article featuring a vintage Dior piece identical to one in my collection, noting how it had quadrupled in value in just 2 years. The irony was, I'd offered to help Kate buy a used car just 3 months ago. Something reliable but affordable that wouldn't strain her already maxed out credit cards. "I don't want some beater," she'd said. "I'll figure it out myself." Apparently, figuring it out meant liquidating my most precious possessions without my knowledge or consent. 3 days after discovering the theft, I was still sleeping on a friend's couch, unable to face returning to the apartment I shared with Kate. That's when I received a text from a former colleague. "Isn't this your Balenciaga jacket? Someone's selling it for $800 on Facebook Marketplace. Seems too cheap to be real." The attached screenshot showed my limited edition jacket, the one I'd paid $8,000 for 2 years ago that was now worth closer to $12,000. I felt physically ill. Kate hadn't just stolen from me. She'd liquidated my investment at pennies on the dollar. A quick search revealed more of my pieces scattered across various online platforms, all priced for quick sales rather than actual value. That evening, I finally confronted Kate at our apartment. "Why would you sell the Balenciaga for $800? You knew what it was worth." She didn't even look up from her phone. "I needed the money fast, besides it's not like you ever wore it." "That's because it's an investment piece, Kate. You knew that. Some of these items had tripled in value." I finally looked at me, eyes narrowing. "Maybe I was tired of living in your shadow. Perfect sister with her perfect job and perfect vintage whatever. You can afford to replace it all anyway." "That's not the point." "The point is," she interrupted, "you've always had everything handed to you. For once, I wanted something nice too." I was speechless. The pure delusion of her statement left me stunned. I'd worked 2 jobs through college. While she partied on our parents' dime, I'd built my business from scratch while she quit jobs over minor inconveniences. When I called our parents, I thought surely this new information would change their perspective. It didn't. "Honey," my mother sighed. "With your success, you can be the bigger person here. Let your sister have this one thing. She's always struggled more than you." "One thing?" "She sold over $50,000 worth of my property," my father chimed in, his voice stern. "Now you're just being materialistic. It's disappointing to see money come between sisters." The final blow came the next day. I was getting coffee when I overheard Kate's friend at the next table. "I can't believe she crashed it already. After all that drama to get it." My coffee halfway to my lips, I froze. Later that day, I drove past the BMW dealership where Kate had purchased her car, and sure enough, in their service area sat her new BMW, front end crumpled, windshield spiderwebbed. She'd had the car less than a week before wrapping it around a tree, apparently while testing how fast it could go from 0 to 60. When confronted, Kate just shrugged. "The insurance will cover it. No big deal." My blood boiled. She had destroyed her illicit purchase and expected no consequences. Meanwhile, pieces of fashion history were scattered across the country, sold for a fraction of their worth to fund her week-long joyride, updated. Some of you asked if I had insurance on my collection. Yes, I did. Kate and my parents had no idea. I've spent the last few days documenting everything with my insurance agent. One commenter suggested filing a police report, which initially felt too extreme. But after talking with my friend who's a lawyer, I'm reconsidering. Does involving the police with family ever actually help? The day after discovering Kate had already crashed her car, I met my friend Nicholas for lunch. Nicholas and I had known each other since college, and besides being one of my closest friends, he was also a successful lawyer. "This isn't just family drama," Nicholas said after I recounted everything. "What Kate did is grand larceny. You're talking about over $50,000 in property. That's a felony in most states." I pushed my salad around my plate. "But she's my sister." "Who stole from you," he countered. "And your parents are gaslighting you about it. They're making you feel crazy for being upset about a very real crime." His words hit me like a bucket of cold water. He was right. If a stranger had broken into my apartment and stolen $50,000 worth of property, no one would question my right to be upset or seek justice. Why was it different because the thief shared my DNA? "What would you do?" I asked him. Nicholas considered for a moment. "You have 2 options. You could press charges, which would likely result in criminal consequences for Kate, or you could handle this another way." "What other way?" "You mentioned the collection was insured?" I nodded. It was something I'd done on the advice of an appraiser years ago. I'd never mentioned it to my family because they already thought my hobby was excessive. File an insurance claim, Nicholas said. Document everything. Get your money back that way, then use it to set up a life completely separate from them. Sometimes the best revenge isn't immediate. It's living well without toxic people. As I drove home that evening, I felt something shift inside me. For years, I'd tried to be the good daughter, reliable, helpful, forgiving. I'd let Kate take and take while I kept giving. I'd let my parents dismiss my feelings and achievements while elevating Kate's smallest efforts. It was a pattern, and for the first time, I saw clearly that it would never change unless I changed my role in it. I pulled over to the side of the road and sat there for a long time, watching the sunset cast long shadows across the dashboard. I thought about my grandmother, who taught me not just about fashion, but about standing on my own 2 feet. Your worth isn't determined by others' assessment of you, she used to say. In that moment, I made my decision. I wouldn't press charges against Kate, not because she didn't deserve it, but because I deserved peace more than she deserved punishment. I would get my insurance payout, move out without drama, and build a new life where I valued myself even if my family didn't. I pulled back onto the road, feeling lighter than I had in years. The loss of my collection still hurt, but now it felt like shedding an old skin, painful but necessary for growth. I was done being the family doormat. It was time to build something for myself, brick by quiet brick. The insurance process took 6 weeks. I documented every piece, with purchase receipts, authentication certificates, and photos from my digital archive. The insurance adjusters were initially skeptical about the values I claimed, but after consulting with vintage fashion experts, they confirmed my estimates were actually conservative. 3 appraised pieces had almost doubled in value since my last documentation. Meanwhile, I lived as though nothing had changed. I stayed in the apartment with Kate, listened to her complain about the BMW repair costs. The crash wasn't fully covered because she'd been speeding. And nodded sympathetically at Sunday dinners when our parents lamented how unfair life was to poor Kate. I didn't tell any of them about the insurance claim. I didn't tell them I'd been apartment hunting, or that I'd met with a financial advisor who specialized in real estate investments. I just smiled, played my part, and waited. The insurance check arrived on a Tuesday, $63,150, more than I'd estimated, thanks to the appreciation of several key pieces. That same day, I secured a meeting with a real estate agent who specialized in small multi-unit properties. I'm looking for something specific, I told her. A small apartment building in a desirable area with stable tenants, except for 1 unit that needs to be vacant within 3 months. 2 weeks later, I closed on a 6-unit building in Riverdale Heights, the trendy neighborhood where Kate had always wanted to live but couldn't afford. 5 units had long-term tenants with excellent payment histories. The 6th would be vacant in exactly 89 days. Our apartment lease was ending in 60 days. I had already decided not to renew, but I hadn't told Kate yet. I'd been quietly moving my important belongings to a storage unit, a few boxes at a time when Kate wasn't home. We need to talk about the lease renewal, I finally said over breakfast. I'm not planning to renew, Kate nearly choked on her coffee. What? Why not? Where am I supposed to go? I'm sure you'll figure something out, I replied, using the exact phrase she'd said when selling my collection. I'm moving into my own place, but I can't afford this apartment alone, she protested. I know. The panic in her eyes gave me a small, vindicating thrill. You're doing this on purpose, she accused. You're still mad about those old clothes, I shrugged. I'm just making a lifestyle change. You're resourceful. You'll be fine. For the next 6 weeks, Kate cycled through anger, bargaining, and pitiful appeals to my sense of family duty. Our parents called daily, insisting I was being vindictive and childish. I just kept repeating that I needed my own space and Kate needed to learn independence. Meanwhile, I was setting up my new property management company, Legacy Holdings LLC. Named after my grandmother, Kate's apartment hunt was predictably disastrous. Her credit was terrible, her income inconsistent, and her references non-existent. 2 weeks before our lease ended, she was still without prospects. Then, miraculously, she found a listing in Riverdale Heights, a 1-bedroom in a well-maintained building recently renovated, pets allowed, with a reasonable security deposit requirement. I found a place, she announced triumphantly at Sunday dinner. And it's in Riverdale Heights. Wait until you see it. Hardwood floors, stainless appliances, walking distance to Meridian Park. Our parents were relieved. I just nodded and asked when she was seeing it. Tomorrow at 10, the property manager is meeting me there. The next morning at precisely 10 a.m., I waited in the vacant apartment, dressed in a professional blazer, hair pulled back, clipboard in hand. When Kate walked in, her expression shifted from excitement to confusion to horror in the span of 3 seconds. What are you doing here? She demanded. I extended my hand professionally. I'm the property manager for Legacy Holdings. Welcome to your viewing. Her face went pale. You own this building? Legacy Holdings LLC owns this building. I represent the company. I handed her an application form. You'll need to fill this out if you're interested. We require first and last month's rent plus security deposit. No late payments accepted. And there's a strict clause about respecting others' property. This is a joke, right? Kate's voice rose. You can't be serious. I maintained my professional demeanor. This is a legitimate rental property, and I'm conducting business. If you're not interested, I have other appointments today. Mom and Dad will never let you get away with this, she hissed. I'm 28 years old. Kate, Mom and Dad don't get a vote in my business decisions. I gestured around the apartment. So, would you like to proceed with the application, or shall I show the unit to the next interested party? Rage and desperation warred on her face. Her options were limited. Her credit was shot, the lease was ending in 2 weeks, and Riverdale Heights apartments were rarely available in her price range. Finally, she snatched the application from my hand. This is ridiculous, she muttered. You're being petty. No, I'm being a businesswoman. The rent is non-negotiable, by the way. $850 per month. Her head snapped up. That's $300 more than the listing said. I smiled politely. The listing was a typographical error. I apologize for the confusion. 2 weeks later, Kate signed a lease with Legacy Holdings LLC. The terms were strict but legal. Rent due on the 1st with no grace period, a hefty late fee, and a detailed property damage clause that would make even the most cautious tenant think twice about scratching a wall. I had a lawyer review everything to ensure it was enforceable. Kate moved in on a rainy Saturday, our parents helping with boxes, all 3 of them shooting me resentful glances throughout the day. I maintained my professional distance, stopping by only to hand over keys and review the move-in inspection form. This is extortion, my father muttered as I explained the lease terms one final time. This is business, I corrected him. Kate needed an apartment. I had one available. The terms are clear and fair, if strict. She's your sister, my mother pleaded. Couldn't you cut her some slack on the deposit at least? The same slack she cut me when she sold my property without permission? I raised an eyebrow. The policies apply to all tenants equally. I'm not making exceptions. As I left the building that evening, I heard Kate complaining loudly about the ridiculously detailed move-in inspection form. I smiled to myself. She had no idea that I'd instructed the maintenance team to document every scratch, scuff, and speck of dust before she moved in. If she returned the apartment in anything less than the condition she received it, she'd be paying for it. Literally, the first rent payment came in on time. The second was 3 days late, incurring a $150 late fee. Kate called me, furious. This is insane. I get paid on the 3rd. The lease clearly states payment is due on the 1st, I reminded her. You signed it. But you know my situation. I know you need to adjust your budget to meet your obligations. The late fee will be added to next month's invoice. By the 3rd month, Kate had begun paying on time. Though each check arrived with a note expressing her ongoing resentment, I filed them all in a special folder labeled Tenant Correspondence. Meanwhile, I'd been using my remaining insurance money and the rental income to rebuild my collection. Piece by careful piece. Each new acquisition felt like reclaiming a part of myself. I'd also expanded my design business, hired 2 assistants, and started consulting for a major fashion archive. The sweet irony wasn't lost on me. Kate's theft had forced me to reinvent myself. And in doing so, I'd created a more successful life than I'd had before. Sometimes rock bottom has a foundation underneath it, after all. 1 year later, I sat in my office reviewing the quarterly reports for Legacy Holdings LLC. What had started as 1 building had expanded to 3 properties with a total of 18 units. My design business had doubled its client base, and my vintage collection, while not yet as extensive as before, now included several museum-quality pieces I never could have afforded previously. Kate had tried to move out of my building 3 times in the past year. Each time, her applications were rejected by other landlords due to her credit history and the detailed rental references I provided when asked. The latest attempt had ended with her boyfriend of 2 months breaking up with her, rather than adding her to his lease. Now she was stuck in Unit 3B, paying premium rent to her sister, with a spotless payment record for the past 6 months. After learning the hard way that my late fees were non-negotiable, our parents had shifted their tone gradually. It started when Kate could no longer help them financially. For years, she'd been giving them small amounts for emergencies. Money that I now realized had likely come from my subsidizing her lifestyle. With her BMW payment and high rent consuming her income, those contributions stopped. Suddenly, my parents were calling me for small loans to cover unexpected expenses. The real turning point came when my mother saw a similar vintage Chanel jacket to one Kate had sold, displayed in a museum exhibit with a placard noting its value at $15,000. Was yours like that one? She'd asked quietly. Mine was in better condition, I'd replied. Probably worth closer to $18,000 now. The color had drained from her face as she finally calculated the true magnitude of what Kate had taken from me. My father, overhearing this, had gone unusually silent. Our Sunday dinners continued, but the dynamic had shifted. Kate complained less. Now understanding the consequences of her actions in a way no lecture could have taught her. My parents treated me with a new respect, somewhere between wariness and admiration. Last month, Kate had actually asked me for advice on building her credit score. I want to qualify for a better apartment, she admitted grudgingly. Start by paying all your bills on time, I told her, including your rent. She'd rolled her eyes but nodded. Baby steps. The most valuable lesson in all of this wasn't about revenge or even justice. It was about recognizing my own worth and refusing to let others define it for me. For years, I'd accepted the role my family assigned me, the responsible one who could be taken for granted because I would always forgive, always help, always give in. Breaking that pattern hadn't just changed my relationship with them, it had changed my relationship with myself. I closed my laptop and gazed out at the city skyline from my office window. Tomorrow, I was meeting with a potential investor about expanding Legacy Holdings further. Next week, I had an appointment with a renowned fashion archivist who wanted to feature some of my pieces in an upcoming exhibition. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Bathroom sink is leaking again. When can maintenance come? I smiled and typed back. I'll send someone tomorrow morning. Please be sure to provide access between 9:11 a.m. Professional, prompt, fair, but no longer a pushover. The collection she'd sold had been valuable, but what I'd built from its ashes was priceless. Updated. Thanks for all the support and questions. So many of you asked for updates about Kate. She's actually started taking night classes in business administration. I think watching me build something successful lit a fire under her. She's still a challenging tenant, but we've reached a kind of detente. My parents still occasionally try to guilt me about the family discount she should get on rent. Do you think some people will never understand the difference between being kind and being a doormat?